Hello. I'd like to encourage you today to stand against massive deportation uh, that is occurring right now in the United States and is also uh, occurring in other countries as well, or on its way. Uh, what's been happening in the United States is not new. If you look at the statistics, Bush, Obama, Biden, and Trump all deported hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people. And that process is a difficult process. Moving people from one part of the world to another requires putting them in detention centers and transporting them. These people who they're deporting, many of them are Native American people from Mexico and Central America, and in those societies they're treated as second-class citizens. Since colonial times, from the Spanish empires, these people have lost their culture. They burned their books. They are treated with very little respect and have very little mobility in that society. And so that's one of the reasons why they came to the United States. And in the United States, they've prospered, they've gained autonomy, even though it wasn't that way at first. And in fact, many of the first people to come were brought by the United States. And you can watch videos where they control, they check their bodies. It's a very unfair relationship, the relationship that the United States has with its neighbors, and this goes back to a conflict that has been going on since settlers started arriving to this continent from Europe. Because of ethnic conflicts in England, there was just a continuation of that in the Americas, and especially between different lifestyles, between the people who are living the nomadic lifestyles, which they adopted with the arrival of the horse with the Spanish, and the sedentary lifestyle of the Eastern United States culture. And so by the time that the United States was already a country, it was going west. Interestingly, that means that some of these people who were a part of this colonization process could have had Native American ancestors too. Despite that, the darker skinned, more Asiatic looking people were profiled. Their lifestyles were deemed wrong. They were not assisted in any sort of way. They were taken from their lands. They were moved to other lands, and now they live in reservations. And in Mexico, many of them also suffered, so they came to the United States eventually. And now what the governments have been doing is that they've been sending them back. Some of them are criminals. Some of them are doing bad things. Of course, this is the worry about of many people. And we can go back to another time in history where this occurred. In 1930s in Germany, many of the conservative and the radical people were calling for the imprisonment of criminals, of other more radical, at least they said, more radical, communist, socialist politicians, and they were put into camps. And also at that time, they were sterilizing and killing people with mental disabilities. So by the time that they started deporting the Jewish people, which you can look at at any Holocaust remembrance, any Shoah remembrance website, and look at the words in German, the words are deportation or emigration. So that's how it started. And and uh, and these people were historically targeted people, the Jewish people, since the medieval ages. So there was a precedence to their mistreatment, and so when they were moved into these camps and made to work as slaves, as vengeance, and for many different other reasons. And so there are differences between what is happening then, or what happened then, and what's happening now, but there are many similarities, and we can't let that happen again. It's not, it wasn't good for Germany. At the end of this terrible conflict, it resulted in the loss of historic German culture and other parts of Europe in retaliation. And it resulted in the loss of millions of lives of people who had much to contribute to the world. And so right now, the people who are part of those communities need to stand up. Hopefully, I plead you to stand up for these people that are being taken from the United States and being sent to these camps, these detention centers, that many of them were built by Obama, and now they're having to build more because there's not enough room. And the ones that they're building, they're not facilities, they're very makeshift centers. And it's just important that we be aware of this, because we might not see it or we might not feel it in our day-to-day, because we don't know what's happening over there. But we know that many of these people belong to ethnic groups that have been historically mistreated in the history of this country. And so when people interact with them, when people are moving them from A to B, that they're being mistreated. Also, people die all the time. So when you're in control of them, they're going to die on your watch. How is that being considered? How old are these people that are being deported? Because a lot of this mass immigration that came in from Mexico happened in the 80s or the 90s, and so or later. So we're wondering, how old are these people, and how young are these people too? Are these children? Are they safe? Are they being abused? They're being put in contact with people that are criminals and are being deported because they did commit crimes. So have some sympathy for these people, because we don't know what's happening to them. The government is not showing us what's happening to them. They're only showing us the politicians. None of the media is showing us what these detention centers are like. And to be honest, I don't trust that they will show the reality, because no one wants to have that burden of and that shame of what could be occurring, of the injustices that we collectively are guilty of. And no massive deportation is good. No, it's just not a solution to the world's problems. These people should have been given an alternative to become a citizen. In the 1920s in the United States, Native Americans were given citizenship for living here, for being here for millions of years, or not millions, but thousands of years, hundred or tens of thousands of years, something like that. And human migration changes. We have volcanoes, we have ice ages, we have reasons why, and rivers, we have reasons why people who used to live in the northern parts of this country would have moved down south, and I believe that that is what happened. Especially if you look at the chronology and the languages that we have. For example, um, the the two biggest languages of the Midwest of the Native Americans were the Siouan family language and the Algonquin family language. And both of those have their centers, or at least the Algonquin for sure has their center in the east. And they know that that those people migrated westwards, as far as Montana. And in the Siouan language, there is a group of people who speak that's in the southeast, and similarly to other groups that were that had agriculture in the northeast, they also came from the southeast. They migrated north. I believe that what they call the Thunderbird here in Madison, Wisconsin, is some geological event that that occurs, and that it was a reason why animals and people migrated southward. And that is, we see that the collapse of the Mississippian society was around the 1200s, 1300, and that's around the time that Tenochtitlan was created. Now, and that, if you don't know, that is as a city of Mexico. So I think that it might be interesting, the connection between the Mississippian cultures and perhaps their travel down the Mississippi and the Gulf towards the city of Mexico. Although it's a far-fetched idea, it's something I wanted to share because there are times in history where people move south because of cataclysms. This world that we live in is warming right now, but there are events in history that cause it to cool. And in cold weather, crops fail, and people starve, and people can't live. It happened in Europe when the Roman Empire caused many disruptions, and there was environmental disruptions as well. Many people of the Germanic tribes fled southwards as far as North Africa eventually. And so there are reasons why people move from one place to another in world's history. And when we have this rigid way of viewing the world and we create enemies by mistreating people, by not giving them a chance after they've worked so hard, that we limit ourselves in our ability to move when we need to move. And so we should be thinking about that, the golden rule. What would you do? How would you treat them? How would you want to be treated? So please consider this. If you support massive deportation, please change your mind. Please consider the facts and consider how this could affect you negatively in the future, because the laws that all of these presidents are creating, they're going to work against new groups in the future when new people come and become president, because they can choose who they want to call a terrorist, and they can choose who they want to call an illegal. And so you might belong to that group. I know for sure that a lot of terrorist activity is associated with white supremacist groups, and that there is a growing sentiment against the injustices perpetrated by those communities. And so this could in the future affect another group, and it could be a group that you belong to. And so a good way to prevent that from happening is by treating all groups equally and giving people a chance and creating true justice And true justice is like the picture of the balance of the scale depicts. It's balance. And so it's an injustice to follow the law and to deport these people so unfairly for everything that they've done, so for how hard they've worked, and to put them in a situation which threatens their life and just humiliates them and shames them and removes them from public view. So thank you for listening. Peace be with you, and hope that you and I are given the strength and the courage to do what we need to do in order to stand against the evil in this world, and that may we not fear the enemy, but know that that Allah, that God, that Jehovah, compassion, the force of compassion is going to support us and is never going to leave us. We're never going to be taken away from it, and it's always in control. So fear not, and pursue what is right with your as best as you can, and Amen. Peace out.